Thank you, Chairman Langford. Let me sort of follow up on that, if I might. Chairman Simons, would you agree that paid prioritization, blocking, throttling, practices by ISPs that may advantage or disadvantage access to particular parts of the internet could be seen as unfair practices?
Under the right circumstances, yes.
And so are you confident that the FTC, should you end up in the place where you are the principal provider of a guarantee of a free and open internet, you feel you have the authorities you need to do that, and if not, you'll come back to us and seek legislation that would clarify exactly what the regulatory framework needs to be?
Yes, absolutely, sir.
Given hearing that we had yesterday on the Judiciary Committee about Cambridge Analytica and Facebook, I'm increasingly concerned that the average consumer doesn't really understand the scope and the potential reach of personally identifying information of remarkable complexity and breadth for them to be able to give meaningful consent. And in recent years, the Commission has successfully used its Section 5 Unfairness Authority to require companies both to take reasonable cybersecurity measures to protect consumers' personal information, but also, I think, could do more in order to protect consumers, to ensure that they have a knowing engagement in the use of their personally identifying information. Tell me, if you would, about how the Commission has used its Unfairness Authority to protect consumer privacy, and whether you think going forward the FTC might make greater use of that Unfairness Authority to protect consumers and their privacy.
So we brought a bunch of cases involving consumer privacy. So in terms of there's a VTech case involving toys interconnection. There's a Vizio case involving television. There's a tax layer case involving tax returns. So we're active in this area. This is a priority for us, and I'm working with the staff to make sure it remains a priority.
Well, I look forward to remaining in contact with you, because I think most Americans aren't aware of the scope of the data breaches that are happening with regularity, and of the breadth and depth of personally identifying information that is now being routinely mined in order to, target advertising to them, which in some ways is positive,
yes,
or that might be unreasonably manipulative. So I think we have some important work to do together on that. Chairman Pai, if I might, the FCC's current media ownership rules limit any broadcaster from reaching, if I understand correctly, more than 39% of the country to ensure independence and variety. But the FCC is moving to reinstate the UHF discount, which has an impact on these requirements, and is also considering a merger between Sinclair and Tribune, which, if approved, could create a massive broadcast group with access to more than 72% of all U.S. households, dwarfing all other current media owners. Do you believe the 39% limit should still be in place? And my understanding is that the UHF discount is currently being reviewed by the D.C. Circuit. Will you wait for a decision by the D.C. Circuit before proceeding?
Senator, thanks for the question. Two different components to the answer. So with respect to what I think the national cap should be, that is the subject of a pending proceeding. We are still receiving input, and we haven't yet made a determination one way or the other. This has obviously been the subject of some litigation and consideration of the Commission.
Some controversy.
For many years. With respect to the merger itself and how it might interplay with that proceeding, I can't forecast. The transaction itself has been on hold. The shot clock, as it's called, has been on hold since approximately January 14th of 2018. And so we don't have any determination as to what that time frame might be for restarting it and how it might interplay with this pending proceeding.
So what are the factors the FCC should consider when reviewing it? And I don't think I got a clear answer to whether you'd proceed without a decision by the D.C. Circuit.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I forgot the D.C. Circuit decision. So there too, we have to make a decision based on the facts that are in front of us. We don't know if and when the D.C. Circuit is going to rule in the near term, and so it's difficult to forecast. How should we make a decision based on what the D.C. Circuit might do? Forecasting from an oral argument, as you know, is always involves some uncertainties. And the next question was with the factors that we would consider with respect to the merger or to the proceeding?
The merger in terms of concentration, and one critically impacts the other. If the UHF rule is allowed to apply to this particular merger, then there might be an outcome that I think allows greater concentration than I at least would be comfortable with, not being an FCC commissioner myself.
I think you've done fairly well, Senator, for yourself. But I think with respect to the factors that we would consider, I would refer back to the original answer I gave when I was a nominee on November 30th, 2011, before this body. We take the facts that are before us, we apply the law faithfully, and we determine whether the consummation of that transaction would be in the public interest. And so some of the concerns that you and other members have outlined are some of the things we have to take into account. At the end of the day, the public interest is served with a vibrant, competitive broadcasting business, and that is the poll star that we abide by.
Well, I hope competitiveness and consumer interests end up remaining the poll star. Thank you very much,
Absolutely.
Chairman Biden. Thank you, Chairman.